Brother man, let me welcome you on Asvai. I am super excited to have you back.
Yeah.
And this won't be a surprise, but something to really look into. This is the first interview I'm doing ever since I came back from America.
From America, okay.
Yeah, from America. So I'm very excited. Hopefully my interviewing skills have improved a little. And I was looking forward to this conversation since the last conversation we had was actually an interesting interview to many people. Actually, your video on our channel remains the top viewed video even today.
Even today,
Yeah, so
a year later.
So it means that there's a smoke around the conversations that we might be having, right?
This is very interesting.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. Thank you for honoring me with your presence, taking my calls every time when I ask you to come. It really means a lot. Well, I did attempt to have people asking questions from online, but I didn't win. So no one really sent a question, except for one question. I think that we have one question, but we're just gonna drop it as we continue.
Okay.
Right? So I welcome you.
No, thank you very much. And it's an honor for me to be here again, to share the wisdom from God again.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's now see the things that we will be looking at, you and I. I want us to discuss the following subjects. Gratitude. I want us to touch on gratitude. I want us to touch on relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, in a very broad manner. I want us to touch on a vision.
Okay.
Right? I want us to touch on on consistency. And I will explain why I want us to touch on these particular subjects as we attack each and every subject, right?
Okay.
Yeah. But firstly, let us clear the air. There's a video of you that went viral when you were talking about being the second best after Vusi. What is it that you think people misunderstood on that utterance, or what do you think people didn't catch on what you were saying? Because I think I understand where you're coming from, but I would like you to explain yourself on that. What is it that you meant exactly?
Okay. And that one particular video is people really attacked that video. But it's fine. Yeah, but there are some positive comments there and also negative comments. But critique will always be a critique.
Yeah, for sure.
So what I think people didn't get there is that there's nothing in this world that happens for the first time. Everything that is happening now, someone somewhere did it, or someone somewhere is on that particular path. Hence I made a reference to a Sotho phrase. So there will always be someone in front of you. And I want to use words from Twasa. She said on other event, under this sun, nothing happens for the first time. I want to agree with her because everything that you can attempt to do, someone once did it or someone is doing it. Mm-hmm. Even on the day that you try to attempt, try to do it, someone is already doing it. So it's not a bad thing to be the second. Being second, it doesn't mean you are not good. It doesn't mean you are not great. You are still great, but it is you acknowledging that there is someone before me. And that will help you to remove this envy and jealousy spirit, because you will understand that as much as I'm doing it, as much as I'm great, but there's someone in front of me, and that particular someone is great. And no matter how big you can be, there's someone who's greater than you. So you have to acknowledge the person who is greater than you in whatever that you are doing. And don't be jealous upon that particular person. You must be able to publicly say the person is great, and that person will remain great.
So in short, Vus is great.
Vus is great.
It's where you draw inspiration.
Exactly.
And there was a comment that says, why you not being number one, aspire to be number one? Because you said after his season, you will be taking over. So
and I'm definitely.
Yeah, so it sounds like your capabilities, your career in speaking depend on him excusing the season. So there was a question that said, or comment that said, why do you wait for his season for you to take over? Why don't you like overlap what he is?
To answer your question, but to answer that comment, acknowledgement, when you acknowledge the person who comes before you, already you are putting your name at 50%. It means you will be at 50% when it comes to greatness. It means the investment that you're going to do, your time investment, your resources, will just peak from 50%. There's elevation in acknowledgement. So when you acknowledge people who came before you, already you are putting yourself at the position of elevation. You know, with honor comes greatness, comes elevation. So you have to acknowledge and honor the person who comes before you. It's similarly what happens in churches. You have to honor the one who's ordained first, and then you have to acknowledge the person, the pastor first, and then your elevation will come. So with elevation, with honoring and acknowledgement comes elevation. So automatically you acknowledging the person who comes before you, the one who's great before you, then already your name, Kappa, you will elevate to that level, and you can be above that particular person. It is possible. Me saying I'm the second after his season, it doesn't mean I'm sitting here saying I'm literally waiting on him, Kappa, on his season to end. There's no such. Hence I said on that particular video, when I do affirmations, I don't say I'm the second, but I'm saying I'm the great. But I have to acknowledge there's someone who's great before me. Before I can be that great, before I can pass that phase, there's someone who's operating in that territory, and I have to acknowledge that person.
Yeah, I hear that, and I think for me, like, to be honest, I never thought like that particular video will catch smoke like it did, like people becoming so critical, because with me, what I understood is you're setting a bar for yourself.
Yeah.
You're setting a bar using a person, right? Just like one can set a bar using figures, using places.
Yeah.
So for me, there was nothing wrong. I was like, you probably draw inspiration from him as much as many of us do, actually. He's one of the great speakers that ever came in South Africa.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful by God that he created someone like him out of him,
yeah,
that he can inspire the coming generation, which is us.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm glad that you made that explanation so that you also redeem yourself.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come as if you were just saying it out of naivety.
Yeah.
I wanted you to put details on that.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Yeah, and I think we can move forward now to the main meal of this session.
Okay.
Yeah. I want us to talk about a black child in South Africa. You are very close to a black child in South Africa, like in your everyday work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want you to tell me the fears and the concerns that you have about a black child today, as far as the future is concerned, right? When you look at them, what are some of the fears that you have or concerns that you have?
A very beautiful question. Yeah, ne? And being a teacher, I think I can answer better.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. My fear, to be honest, is to have a hopeless generation. That is my greatest fear. Working closely with a black child, you get to see, especially this coming generation, you get to see a hopeless generation. You can even sense a hopeless generation. One, I think there's a distance between our generation and this coming generation.
What's the distance?
In terms of skills, in terms of, let me not go to skills, in fact, their level of motivation is compromised in terms more than you grew up knowing that you want to be better. But this generation lives in a environment of I don't care. You see, that is the distance between, that is a difference between the old generation and the current generation, the upcoming generation. So that is my greatest fear, that we might have a hopeless generation in years to come.
Where exactly is your fear in them being like in them being like I don't care? I'm gonna use this word, in them being passive, like allowing things to happen on them, but not seemingly to be actively involved. Like, what's the danger in that? Where's your fear coming in specifically?
You know, ignorance can kill you a real death. Being ignorant about things that are happening in your life, Kappa, that involves you without you being involved, that can be dangerous for you. And the passive generation that we are to experience, my greatest worry about it is that most of them, they are coming from disadvantaged families. And at the end of the day, the very same generation, their parents send them out as their last hope.
Last line of defense.
Last line of defense. So that is where my fear, my worry comes from. To say these people, they are passive, it's fine. They don't care, it's fine. But are they aware that their first line of defense, that is the last hope in the family? So
in a sense of we're hoping that you will end the poverty that we're going through.
Exactly.
The emotional traumas that are happening in the family. I see.
So I don't think they are much aware of that. To say, I might be at this position, and then at home they are expecting me to come out a great person, to come out a successful person, in the benefit of the family. We can say it. We can say we are out of apartheid and we are out of so many things, but we are not yet out of poverty.
True.
So it means generation to generation, we have a battle to fight, which is a battle of poverty. We have to fight poverty. So if we have a generation that doesn't care, it means we are still too far from defeating the enemy, which is poverty. So that is my fear, because in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, where our economy will be, it might not be advantageous to this coming generation. So where are they? Where is their thinking? Actually, it worries me.
And what some of the maybe daily things that they do or you see which maybe become a symptom of these fears that you have, them being passive? What makes you say they are passive? Which traits or like activities that you see them being involved in or doing on a daily basis?
You see, if you are a teacher, you will have a first-hand experience, because in our growing up, we grew up believing, knowing that education is very important, it's key. But you find this generation that they don't even care about the school activities, the schoolwork, what is happening at school. Are we here to learn or what? They don't even care. They don't even respect their teachers. They don't care what will happen if they fail to achieve the education. They don't even care to say, if I don't get to a matric, I won't be able to go to varsity. I won't be able to get a job opportunities. That's number one. Number two, they have given themselves to the substance abuse, drugs, alcohol. And alcohol is one of it might seem to be entertaining, but it is one of the substance abuse that is killing our community. Yes, we can try to shy away from it, but that is one of the substance abuse that is killing our community. So they have given themselves to that. They have given themselves to drug abuse. And the environment at which they live in happen to supersede their thinking, their capabilities, their potentials. Because now the environment itself is so toxic to a level where it's rare where you will see a black child growing up. I want the hoshaya kaga that environment. It's very rare nowadays, because now environment is toxic too much to a point that it compromises the potential of our young brothers and sisters.
I love that. And there's a long stretch that I can take on this question, but because of the time that we're going to have to allocate for this in order to cover other subjects, I'm just going to end it here. Because you speak about them not being inspired by education anymore, and you see them in how they tolerate like their schoolwork and stuff like that. One would push back and be like, isn't this generation the generation that sees the truth, or maybe what they suspect to be the truth about education, that education is the key to success? If success is a door, this door seem to be extremely invisible, that they see their brothers and sisters going to school and coming back with their degrees, with their qualifications, and still not finding jobs, still not seeming to be still don't seem to be becoming successful, or they don't seem to claim the education is a success cliche, if you understand what I'm saying. And they also look at how formal education is not maybe a foundation for a lot of people that are successful, things like that. Like, there's a lot that one can have a pushback around, but like I said, because of time, I think we will pass to the other question, unless you have something to say on that.
Yeah, in that regard, I would say, if we are saying this generation happen to see a truth about education, I think similarly we must be able to say they are doing something about their discovery.
Oh yeah, that's good.
You see, so if ever we're gonna say they are seeing the truth about education, what are they doing to counteract the education, the truth about education? But we find our brothers and sisters stuck in tech shops, giving themselves to substance abuse. So I won't say they understand. If they really understood the truth, they started to understand the truth about education, they have to show us something positive that they are doing to better their lives.
I see.
So that was that.
I see. And I do like what you're saying. It's true. I mean, substance abuse really combat our communities physically and mentally, like viscerally in their wellness. There's something that I actually, I think I studied this somewhere, but I didn't go into much detail making research around that if a person consumes alcohol, their aptitude, their mental aptitude, and no, not aptitude, what's this word? Efficacy, like their ability to believe in themselves, grasping ideas to progress in a particular activity, it becomes very small. Like they lose mental abilities. It becomes very short. Like for instance, if someone drinks over time, if they used to get something like 100% on the test, as they continue to drink, their mind abilities is becoming very weak to a point where like they're now getting 50 on their test. It's an example of what I'm trying to say, like what I read. I just didn't go in research around this, but there's something like that I read, that when we consume, like for instance alcohol, we also damage our brain when it comes to assimilating learning methodologies and stuff like that. So I hear where you're going. Very interesting thing that I want to talk about, gratitude, right?
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about gratitude. On your live session, you spoke about gratitude making healthy environments. We just spoke about toxic environment that we are living in. Yeah. So you did mention that one of the things that one can actually put into action or into practice is the spirit of gratitude. Please give us the background work of what happens when people seem to be more grateful or are more grateful in the place, and firstly, you can break it down if there's a need of what is healthy environment according to you, and then which part or what's the work that goes in when we put gratitude in our environment.
Okay, you are taking me back to a very interesting live session I ever had, and I saw one of the people who was part of that live session putting that in practice, and I was so happy to say this person didn't just join the live session for training, but he came out a better leader, a better supervisor. You see, so I saw a few people, not even one, few. I saw one in Velcom. The lady is the departmental head. So I saw another one that I have on my WhatsApp from Kwak. Yeah, the guy did a wonderful thing for his staff, for his subordinates. So actually, by the spirit of gratitude, being grateful as a person, it's very important, and it creates a healthy environment around you. You know, when I refer to healthy environment, I refer to the kind of relationships, human relations. I refer to it, the work relations. You see, sometimes it's not like your company or your institution is not performing. You just have to trace back do you even acknowledge your workers? Do you even acknowledge your subordinates? In your relationship, do you even acknowledge your partner? Do you even feel grateful to have that particular person as your partner? So sometimes it's not about, the spirit of gratitude is a basic thing. And our parents taught us that to say we have to be grateful. We have to, sometimes your mother will tell you, as long as we sleep, we go to bed having something in the stomach.
Yeah.
We just have to thank God.
Say thank you.
Say thank you. That is the spirit of gratitude. You become grateful even in the situations that compromises you, but you are still grateful to say, God is there. This person is in my life, no matter the gray areas that person might have, but for the fact that this person is with me now, this person chose me out of all
7 billion people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it means I have to be grateful to say, this person sees value in me.
Yeah.
No matter how bad I can be. But this person decided to say, I'm choosing this idiot. No matter how damned he can be, but I'm choosing him. So you have to be grateful to that level, to that extent. So that I shared basic things that the spirit of gratitude can do in your environment. In your environment, I mean in your relationships, I mean in your work relations, I mean in your family, I mean between you and your partner in a romantic relationship, what it can do. I remember I said, when you practice the spirit of gratitude as in the institution, as a leader in the institution, already you're putting the performance of the institution at 50%. The investment of time and energy will just escalate the performance. But because you show gratitude, you show that these people that you are grateful to have them in your team, it means these people will have courage to wake up in the morning to go to work. You don't have to push them to work because they know that our superior acknowledge us. Our superior will be glad to have us tomorrow morning.
They are appreciated.
They are appreciated.
They don't feel like slaves.
They don't feel like slaves. So automatically that creates alarm to them to say they have to wake up in the morning and go to work.
I love that.
So you have to be, as a leader at any institution, you have to have this spirit, which is the spirit of gratitude. You have to acknowledge your subordinates. You have to acknowledge your friends.
Not only with money.
Not only with money.
Salary is not part of this.
It's not part of it. Even though we know that relationships are transactional, right? But we'll talk about that later. But you have to show them that you appreciate them for being part of you, for being part of your life, for being part of your journey. You might meet a certain idiot in life only to find out that particular idiot is there to teach you something.
Very true.
So, for a fact that you met that idiot, according to you, you have to be grateful. And sorry to use the word idiot, but I'm trying to show that you can belittle a person as much as you can, but that particular person has a role in your life.
I see.
So you don't meet people by coincidence. You don't make relationships by coincidence.
Yeah.
So everything, the universe will align according to your level of thinking. Universe will align resources, and humans are resources, are part of resources.
Yeah, true.
So every person that you're going to meet in your journey of becoming somebody, that particular person is very important. No matter how great they can be, no matter how small they can be, but everybody that you're going to meet in your journey, that person will play a very significant role. So you have to appreciate your friends, appreciate the relations that you are in, appreciate your partner. You know, your kid is not misbehaving or he's not performing bad at school. He just lack, she just lack that element of appreciation from a parent.
To be appreciated that I'm trying.
Exactly.
And you see that I'm trying. You appreciate the small improvement that I'm making.
Exactly.
Yesterday I got 50 on a test, but today it's 55.
You appreciate.
As a parent, you should come and be like, wow, you did very good.
Very good.
I appreciate your efforts of studying.
Exactly.
I see. And there's someone who commented the similar thing, that a teacher, this guy, he said he used to be very average on maths until the teacher came and appreciated the potential in this guy.
Yeah.
And this guy became very good at maths.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a comment like that.
It was there on Facebook or TikTok, somewhere there, but it was there.
I love that. I love the whole idea of having like being a grateful person, because I can also trace it back from home. Like my mom would say, even if it's a small thing, even if it's a big thing, mtanami kuyabongwa.
Yeah.
I like that. What do you think it's so difficult individually to suddenly be grateful in spaces? Like how I started saying, I appreciate you being here, because you could have been anywhere else.
Yeah.
What is difficult about people saying such things or acting in a very in a way that shows gratitude? Because, well, I now have a liberty to say this. I wouldn't say it if it was previously, but talking about workplace, we have so many workplaces that people literally don't feel like going to work, because they don't think about the amount of work they have. They don't think about the working, like the office, the type of the office, that it's cold or something like that. But they think about the people that they're going to meet at work.
Yeah.
And how they're going to make their day miserable.
Yeah.
You did mention people not lacking the spirit of gratitude even in the workplace. Now I'm coming to a point to say I've seen that, because I was when I was working in the US, it was the same thing. And it's not only a South African thing that the workplace is toxic. People find it difficult to coexist. It's like they don't appreciate each other. It's like they can fire each other even if they are not bosses.
Yeah.
What's in that? What's so difficult to go to someone and be like, you're doing very well, and I really appreciate you being here. You're actually helping me to meet the objectives of the day or of the task or of the organization itself. What do you think people find it difficult?
Intimidation. It happens a lot to leaders. They feel intimidated by their subordinates. I had one scenario where I don't want to mention the positions because it will appear.
Yeah.
Where do I actually referring to? But where you find a leader being intimidated by a post level 1. So
you find that maybe a third level manager is intimidated by a first level manager, something like that.
Something like that. Like you find the CEO of the company being intimidated by a mere employee. A mere employee, someone who don't even have the title or the position.
Yeah.
And that will actually cause the leader to actually lack this spirit of gratitude, because when you see that particular person, you don't see a teammate, you don't see a teammate, but you see your opponent. You see someone who is attacking you, Kappa. You see him that to a point that you want to attack the very same person. So everything that is good that particular person is doing, you don't want to see it, because that person is your opponent.
You feel like they're going to take your job.
So I was like, hey, Chief, already you are appointed and your appointment is permanent. why do you get intimidated by a male employee without a position? Because already your appointment is permanent, and yours is to manage these people, manage them, and when you manage them, you have target to meet or to reach. So why can't you revive their esteem so that they can perform? So one of the strongholds of spirit of gratitude is to revive esteem, is to revive the inner person. To say, when I tell you today to say you are doing good, tomorrow you will come back and want to do better.
Yeah.
So and then when I tell you that you are doing better, tomorrow you will want to come and do great. So when I say definitely you're doing great, tomorrow you will want to come and do greater. So it means the time you take to appreciate your employees, they will be at the position to do what? To do even better, to even become better. So and once they become better, it means it talks to the performance of the institution. It's no longer talk about you and I. It's no longer a matter of the leader and the subordinate, but it's a matter of now the performance of the institution. Now the institution will be recommended in the awards. Isn't that good?
It's very good.
Exactly. So we have to be at that level of saying, let me appreciate my employees so that we can be able to alter the performance.
Yeah.
But if ever as a leader you still get intimidated by your subordinate, then obviously you'll be jealous upon that particular employee. You won't see the good that he's doing or she's doing. You won't even try to attempt to see it.
I see, bro. And that's people being intimidated by each other. I feel like it's more the spirit of competition, like they compete.
Yeah. It will breed competition.
Yeah, I see. And now I want us to move on to relationships, right? I want us to talk about relationships while we're still there. Well, from where I'm standing, I see a very lonely generation suffering from superiority and superiority complexes. And when it comes to relationship, they are not so well invested to make relationships and relationship in such a broad sense, like friendships, making that network and networking and stuff like that. So it's something that I don't see. People are not really invested in creating relationship structures, and in this world today, people find pleasure in individualism, which is something else. Yeah. So, what are the importance of relationships? And in your observation, what leads to the friendships that we have, the relationships that we have, can be romantic or just casual relationships? What leads to their failure, and why do you think we as the current generation take pleasure so much in individualism? When I say they suffering from superiority complex, I say this because sometimes I go to a shop.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm on a queue. And this is just a random person in front of me. I want to talk, bro.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm not going to hit on you. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to take your money. I'm in a queue of a shop. It means I have money to be there, right?
Yeah.
But people find it very hard to be socially interactive with others. And sometimes you see it in other social gatherings where people, like, they just want people to have to approach them, but they never approach people to start relationships. And in terms of friendships, you never have these friends that maybe would randomly call you and ask, how you doing? Every time when you call, it's like, what's up? What do you want?
Yeah,
you know?
True.
Yeah, we never, it's like we are not so well invested to create these. What do you think leads to that? And most importantly, what leads to the failure of our current friendships or relationships?
Okay, let me start with the failures. Yeah. I think we get into relationships, friendships that are not defined.
What do you mean by that?
You meet me in Katamelo, grade 9. Well,
Yeah.
so we are friends. We play soccer together. Grow up like that, and then, but we never got a chance to define our friendship. Well, what do we want, you and I, out of this friendship? What are our aspirations? You see, we get into relationships that are not defined. We get into friendships that are not defined. Because your companionship or the friendships that you have, they are actually important not for where you are in the most cases. They are important for where you are going. You see, relationships, take a vehicle for instance. You can have a vehicle without if you can take friendships like that to say your friendships are your vehicles.
Your wheels.
Your wheels.
Yeah.
Now to say, I might be the vehicle, but I don't have wheels. I can't go anywhere. So if you take your, thank you for that. If you take your friendships like as vehicles, remember friendships are very are transactional. So we have passed the stage of being friends for the sake of being friends.
Yeah.
So we have to be friends, Kappa. We have to define our friendships so that we don't confuse each other along the way.
We should know what brings us together, what makes us friends. Let's set standards.
Exactly. So because once you don't define your friendship, you'll get confused. Because you'll find you want to go this way, but I want to go that way.
I love that.
You see, so but it is fine to have individual aspirations. But why are we together? What are we hoping to achieve as friends? Where do we want to see ourselves as friends? You see, because once you can't even describe your friendship, once you can't even attach goals to your friendship, we have a problem. Because you have to attach your goals to your friendship, because tomorrow the person that you are going to become might clash with the friend that you have. And now that's where the spirit of competition will arise.
Jealousy.
The jealousy, the envy will arise.
It's now personal.
It's now personal. But not knowing if we could have defined our friendship long time ago, you will know I will be with Sive up until this point. Beyond this point, our journey ends.
I understand when it ends. I don't like frown on you and maybe become mad and be like, you betrayed me. I knew that it was going to end. Because we discussed our friendship when we started.
Yes.
I love it so much.
So that's where most of the friendships fail. And now, the third parties in the friendships, you know, we happen to make a chain. Your friend can be your friend without being my friend.
My friend can be my friend without being your friend.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, we happen to make a chain. You come with your friend, I come with my friend, we become friends. My friend comes with his friend, we become friends.
Bunch of friends.
Bunch of friends.
Yeah.
Now there are clashes. We clash in beliefs. We clash in goals. You see, we clash in aspirations. So we are just a group of people who are clashing in a lot of things. That's why we'll have I want it this way. That's what because now we are just a group. You see, Lempane uyakai, so and so uyakai. So to avoid the failure of relationships, define your relationship. Define your friendship.
That now that we are here, this is the plans that I have for us.
For us.
What are the plans that you have
For us.
I love that. There's actually this thing. I think you're gonna love it so much. I have friends that I love them so much. I love them so much. But the borrowing of money is the nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, with you, my friend,
I know.
we don't borrow each other money. It's part of the standards that I set for other relationships.
Yeah.
That there are people that I love them so much, they are my friends, but we won't borrow them money because those are not part of the standards that we set. And based on knowing each other, I know that we might have a problem here.
Yeah.
And instead of losing both friend and the money, because it's possible when you borrow people money, that you can just lose that. I'm like, we're not gonna do this. So I love that so much. Being very conscious about the people that you put in your life, and being and defining as well, like where are we going?
Yeah.
And in terms of romantic relationships, what do you see to be a thing that leads to failure on our relationship? I think, bro. I think we're a generation that is very insane when it comes to commitment.
Yeah.
We can't seem to commit to one person.
Yeah, true.
I think that's like one of the things. And I don't know. Tell me, what do you think lead into your failure of these romantic relationships? Do you think like you can even include marriage into this? Bro, there's just a crazy amount of people that are divorcing and stuff like that. What do you think is happening around our romantic relationships? And I would say, from where I'm standing, I don't see a casual relationship. Like, let's say, I don't see dating as far away from marriage.
Yeah.
I think dating models marriage.
Yeah.
I think the only difference is the formalities that goes into a marriage.
Yeah.
But once we're dating today and tomorrow we decide to get married, nothing is going to change about how we feel about each other and stuff like that. I that's what I think. But yeah, you can carry on. What do you think leads into a failure of relationships in nowadays? Because let me tell you this actually. I hope my ex-girlfriend is watching. I had a relationship that ran for 6 years when I was still young. 6 years. I love this person. This person seemed to love me. But now, bro, approaching 6 years is so hard. I don't know if it's growth or what, but what's your thought around that?
One would say at some point you get to outgrow a person.
Mm-hmm.
And one would say, how do you maneuver after outgrowing that particular person? You can outgrow the person, it's fine. But how do you maneuver around it without letting that particular person go? Because that's what's going to happen when you get married. You can stay with this particular person every day, chief. You will wake up next to this person every day. And what will you do when one day you wake up and you feel like, come on, this person, this person, no. What do you do? So it's a matter of commitment. As much as you are lacking in that, but once you commit yourself, stick by your word to say, I'm gonna be with this person and I will make this work. Revive your love. Don't be, I was in Pretoria Saturday. I only came back yesterday. So I was sitting with my uncle. So we were talking around this topic. I like what he said. He said to me, we are ready for you to get married. But our worry, are you ready yourself to get married? And I was like, yeah. The excitement is, I'm ready. I want to spend my life with this person. You see, and by the way, I was confident about my girlfriend to say, yeah, I'm gonna spend my life with this person. I love the lady so much.
Yeah.
Nah, I was confident to say, yeah, this is the person. And he said to me, what are your fears and what I have fears about your relationship? And I started talking to say, my fear is this. One of my greatest fears was losing her.
To death or to separation?
To separation. I was like, hey, this lady, I have that fear of losing her. And then he said to me, you have a fear of losing her because you love her, or because you don't want her to be
with someone else?
Someone else.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, hey, this person. And I was like, because I love the lady. And if you really love the lady, you only have a fear of losing her because you know you have done so much. You have shown her your love. You have actioned your love to her. So if ever you still have that fear, it means you haven't done enough.
Interesting.
To show that particular person that you love her. And if you really did your part to show her how much do you love her, she won't be questioning your love. Because he said to me, ke nahana hore tshabo ya hao tlisitswe ke dipotso tsa ho botsang tsona ka lerato la hao. So it means she questions my love because I have not yet shown how much do I love her. I was like, why do I have to go extra mile showing her? I love her. I love his action. Love needs consistency. Love needs commitment. Love needs communication. So if you still have problem around those areas, it means she has every right to question your love. Because how can you say you love someone and then you cannot communicate with that particular person? And there's a difference between communication and clear communication. You know, one of the factors, we might be communicating, but we might find ourselves that we are not having a clear communication.
How's that looking like? Can you break it down to a simplest
point? What you love is clear to her, and what she loves is clear to you. What you don't like is clear to you, and to her, and what she doesn't like from you is clear to her. So it means clarify the unspoken.
Don't assume that she understands.
Don't assume that she understands. Clarify the unspoken.
That's interesting. I had someone talking about it to me. It's like women want you to be very clear.
Yeah.
Don't just go mad and just think they will diagnose where your madness is based on. Yeah, I hear that.
So we had a very lengthy conversation around that. And I was like, okay, now I have to go back, analyze, and fix my gray areas. And he mentioned that, relationship is an investment. The person that you are going to be with in the future, that relationship is an investment. So even in friendships, the friendships that you have are your investments.
Love that.
So it took me back to say, it means I don't have to be friend with everyone, but the relationship, the friendships that I'm going to form from this point moving forward will be my investments. Not only in terms of, not even considering the factor of man, but the fact that you might need this part. You have podcasts, I don't have one. So I don't have professional videos. So it means in the long run, the friendship that I'm having with you is transactional.
It might amount to something you need.
It might amount to something that I need. To you, you need the content.
Yeah.
But for me, I need professional videos. So the friendship on its own, it's an investment. So how I relate to you and how you relate to me, both of us, we are benefiting. We are interested. There is interest at some point that we are getting.
And that says every friend should bring something to the table. Does that mean that?
Yeah. Every friendship brings something to the table.
I see.
Don't confuse someone that you know with your friend. You must be able to separate them. There's someone that you know, then there's your friend. Your friend is someone that you don't have to call every day, every morning, every minute. You don't have to chill with every day, every now, every minute. But it's someone that you know your place in his heart, and he knows his place in your heart. Equally so. He knows when I pick up, when I take my call, when I take my phone and make a call, when CV picks up, he will be able to find solutions to my problems. Because at the end of the day, we don't have solutions for everything.
Yeah.
So sometimes you depend on your friends to have solutions for you.
I love that. I love what you said, that friendships are part of your investment.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what you said when you said we must firstly define and understand the type of friends we are, or the type of friendship that we are in. We must firstly identify. And if you look at the nature of investment, because I've done thoroughly studies around investments. I studied commerce, so I understand thoroughly around investment, and I also do investment by myself. On the top 3 principles on investment, there's one principle that says know what you invest on.
Yeah.
And the other one is never lose money. Yeah, so know what you invest on, which links to what you said when you said know the type of friend that you have, define set standards and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. You must know what is the investment. You must know what are you planning to achieve out of this investment. What are your clear intentions about this investment? What you are investing on must definitely bring returns.
So in your friendship portfolio, you will know that when I need this thing, I call this person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's Sive, it's not about you achieving great things in the later stage isolated. No man, no isolation. You can go anywhere and find a man who made it in life in isolation. God trusted men for men.
Yeah.
So you can't become great in isolation.
I see.
I've never seen that. Okay, maybe some other people can argue it differently and say, I know my uncle never met someone. But what I'm telling you, part of the important investment that you have is your relationship, companionship. It's part and parcel of the investments that you should have as a person.
Bro, I love that so much. I want us to move on. Let's move on to vision. One of the subjects, my favorite subjects you speak around. Okay, or maybe before we move on, I don't know, maybe you can drop some few things that we can apply in making our relationship successful. I'll put one for you, which you've already mentioned. Let's be grateful of these people that we have in our lives. Number 2.
Define your friendship.
Define a friendship.
Define it. Definitely, you have to define what kind of a friendship do you want
with this person.
With this person.
Yeah.
Define it. You know, it's not a bad thing to define a friendship. It's not a bad thing to say, Chief, Narana Kopanzo Gitabe podcast.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a bad thing to say, okay, I will come. Whenever you need me, I will come. But you must make sure that I have those visuals.
I see.
It's not a bad thing to do that.
Yeah.
You see? So you have to define it.
Show how grateful you are for these people. Define friendship. Number 3.
Number 3, make sure that in everything that you do, you take your friends along.
Oh man, I love that. I love that so much.
More than you grew up knowing that you want to be better. But this generation lives in an environment of I don't care.